Morning turns into midday at the Kane residence. The house was quieter now. The servants moved with precision, clearing breakfast and tidying rooms as though nothing had happened. Marcus sat in the guest lounge, restless, staring at walls that reminded him how much of a visitor he was. Mrs. Calder returned briefly, balancing a tray. "Sir, will you be attending the meeting later?" she asked. Calm, unshakable. Marcus snorted. "Attending? There's nothing here for me to attend. Nothing that wants me here anyway." She placed the tray down without flinching. "Observation is earned before action. You'll see that soon enough." Marcus leaned back. Observation. Being sidelined is not observing, it's being invisible. Mrs. Calder met his gaze evenly. Even invisible, one can move, quietly, carefully, effectively. Marcus exhaled slowly. Effective, yes. We'll see who notices. Alexander entered his high-rise office, settling behind his desk. Sunlight glinted off the polished surfaces, casting geometric patterns across the room. He reviewed the subsidiary account Jonathan had assigned him, making routine calls. "Yes, I need the updated reports for the subsidiary," he instructed. "Ensure all entries match last quarter's statements. Flag inconsistencies, but handle them according to standard procedure only." He checked internal emails, confirmed delivery schedules with Geneva partners. Nothing urgent, just standard compliance. Switching lines, he continued. "Schedule the conference call with Zurich. Have all documentation ready. Standard checks only." Alexander leaned back, confident. Everything was orderly, everything routine. He trusted the family business completely. No surprises, no secrets, no reason for concern. Meanwhile, Jonathan Kane was in his own office, seated at his desk, dark mahogany polished to a mirror shine. He was focused on two men standing across from him, middle managers from a partner firm. "Timing is critical," Jonathan said, voice calm but precise. "You know the constraints. This isn't a request, it's expected." One of the men shifted uncomfortably. "And if there's Jonathan's eyes narrowed slightly. "Then you handle it quietly. No alarms, no questions. Make the outcomes seamless. You understand what's at stake." The second man cleared his throat, and the other parties. Jonathan leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. "Keep them engaged but distracted. The less they know, the easier everything proceeds. But nothing reckless. This is all about precision, not exposure." The men nodded. Jonathan dismissed them with a small gesture. He turned back to his notes, reviewing the day's schedule. Everything looked ordinary to an outsider, but Jonathan's mind was already calculating the next moves. After completing his work, Alexander knocked lightly and entered his father's office. "Father," he said, dropping a folder on the desk, "all reports for the Geneva partners are updated, and I've confirmed schedules with Zurich. Everything in order." Jonathan looked up from his notes, expression neutral but approving. "Good. Efficiency is key. Keep that focus, Alexander. I want personal oversight on the subsidiary review. Make sure everything aligns with what we expect. Standard checks, nothing extraordinary." Alexander nodded, oblivious to the subtle strategic maneuvers Jonathan had just handled earlier. "Understood, Father. I'll have the full review ready by the end of the day." Jonathan allowed a faint smile. "That's why you're learning fast. Attention to detail and follow-through matter." Alexander left, confident, methodical, unaware of anything beyond routine business. In the city, Isabella Kane moved among her trusted circle, every word measured, every gesture deliberate. "You underestimate him," one associate said quietly, referring to a rival investor. Isabella shook her head. "They underestimate because they don't see what I see. Timing, patience, and influence, these are my tools. My family knows their place, and those who don't will learn." Her phone buzzed, but she ignored it. "And Marcus?" asked the same associate. "He's restless," Isabella replied, a faint smile on her lips. "But restlessness can be shaped. I let him grow in the right way, or stumble where necessary. Power is claimed, not given." She rose gracefully. "Remember, in this house, no one takes power. Power is wielded or controlled, and I make sure it is." Back in the guest suite, Marcus wandered the halls, eyes sharp. He noticed routines, memorized schedules, observed the staff and their subtle movements. A gardener walked by, watering the perimeter. Marcus paused. "Does Mrs. Kane know you've left that gate unattended this morning?" The man froze. I didn't think." Marcus leaned casually. "Little mistakes add up. Everything is noticed eventually." The gardener hurried to correct it. Marcus smiled faintly. "That's small, Quiet correction, unseen by anyone, felt like the first real taste of control he could exert in the house. The building hummed with quiet power. Executives moved with purpose. Conversations clipped and efficient. Alexander stepped out of his office, jacket draped neatly over his arm, mind focused and clear. To him, this was order, structure, legacy functioning as it should. He paused briefly, looking out across the city skyline from the corridor windows. Everything below looked controlled, predictable, safe. He turned and headed toward the elevators. Jonathan remained seated at his desk long after most had left. The lights in the office were dimmer now, the city glowing behind him. Time mattered too much for indulgence. His phone vibrated. Jonathan answered without greeting. Yes. A voice on the other end spoke quietly, deliberately. Jonathan's jaw tightened slightly. Not yet, he replied. Everything must appear clean, calm, no disruptions. I said no disruptions, Jonathan repeated, slower this time. If anyone panics, they're removed from the equation. The call ended. Jonathan closed his eyes briefly, then reached for a file on his desk. He slid it into a locked drawer and stood. Soon, he muttered to himself. The estate glowed under carefully placed lights as dusk settled. Inside, the house was alive with controlled motion. Staff moved silently. Doors opened and closed without sound. Mrs. Calder stood near the center hall, overseeing transitions with her usual precision. Dining room secured. She asked, "Yes, ma'am," a staff member replied. And the east wing locked and cleared. She nodded once. Everything was as it should be. Across the hall, Marcus lingered near the staircase, watching the house as though it were a chessboard. He adjusted his sleeves, eyes narrowing slightly. "You run this place like a machine," he said casually. Mrs. Calder didn't look at him. "Machines work because every part knows its function." "And what happens," Marcus asked quietly, "when a part decides it wants more?" She finally turned to him, her gaze steady. "Then it either proves its worth, or it breaks." Marcus smiled faintly. "Interesting." Isabella sat elegantly, phone resting in her hand. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were sharp. "They think the house is quiet," she said to the person on the line. "That silence means safety." She paused, listening. "No," Isabella continued, voice cool. "I don't move when others expect me to. I move when it matters." She ended the call and rose slowly, smoothing her jacket. "Power," she whispered, "is never loud." Alexander loosened his tie and set it aside, reviewing documents on his tablet. Numbers made sense. Systems made sense. The family business to him was strong, ethical, and precise. He glanced at a framed family photo on his desk. His father, his mother, himself, and an unknown woman. Everything felt solid. His phone buzzed. A calendar reminder. Tomorrow, executive review, 8 a.m. Alexander nodded to himself. Another step forward. Another day proving he belonged. Nia lay against the pillows, calm, composed, watching him with quiet familiarity. Her presence was unspoken, deliberate, not rushed, not playful, just there. "You're working too late," she said softly. Alexander gave a small smile. "Tomorrow's review. I want everything perfect." She said nothing more, only reached out, resting her hand lightly on his arm, grounding him, distracting him just enough. He joined her without a word. The room lights went out. Jonathan stood alone in his office, locking his door. Isabella walked through the residence, heels echoing softly. Marcus stood at his window, staring out into the darkness. Phone vibrating again, unanswered. Mrs. Calder switched off the final lights downstairs. The Kane estate settled into silence. But beneath the calm, something was shifting. The players were in place. The day had passed without incident, but the undercurrents were building. The Kane world moved like a chessboard, each piece ready, each move intentional.